group of people are not covered by this program. So that includes certain types of students, those who were unemployed before COVID, folks who are receiving social assistance or welfare or disability payments before COVID, and those who quit their jobs. So something to know about our program, the SERB program, is that it's hugely more, it pays way more than welfare and disability programs. And so it creates, it begs the question of whether the government, thinks there's potentially a divide between, the deserving and undeserving poor. And so I've included a bit of a discussion here about this concept of the deserving and undeserving poor. And it turns out that this is an ideology that comes from 17th century British legislation, but it, is still quite influential today. And the deserving undeserving poor ideology basically meant that folks who were considered able-bodied, so folks who didn't have a major disability, who needed financial assistance, who were unable to find work, they were treated in a very punitive way. And they were put in workhouses, and their children were sent to orphanages. Poverty was considered a crime. And people who were impoverished were considered poor because of their own personal failures, not necessarily the failures of a society or an economic system to give them the opportunities that they need. And so this brought the principle of less eligibility, meaning that folks seeking aid from the government must be worse off than the lowest paid worker. And so that's what determines the level of social assistance and disability payments generally in Canada. Is not necessarily what people need to survive, but how low the minimum wage is, and a bit lower than that. So minimum wage is not something that most people can survive on. And so the rate of these programs being even lower than minimum wage makes it quite difficult to survive, and it really traps people in poverty. And it was quite an insult to a lot of these folks when folks who were considered more of deserving poor, so folks who were laid off, who were working before the pandemic and were laid off because of the pandemic, these folks got a way bigger payment from the government, and there was, there was quite a bit of tension, and there was a lot of injustice in this differential, and it really made me think of this ideology of the deserving and undeserving poor. And so again, all of these tensions and injustices around differential rates of financial assistance based on, arbitrary eligibility criteria has really made the universal basic income model even more attractive right now. And like I said, there's a policy window right now to put forward these types of ideas.
I do apologize.
Yes.
You have 1 more minute. 1
more minute. Okay. Yes. All right. I'll talk quickly about increased risk of family violence. So pandemic-related stress can increase the risk of conflict and dysregulation in families. The added isolation of lockdowns makes it easier for violence to go unnoticed by social service, health workers, as well as teachers. Women and children are at higher risk of violence, and services offered to victims of family violence are less accessible during the pandemic. So just to give you a quick example, the children, the number of reports to child protection was drastically reduced during the first bit of the pandemic because children were going to school, and usually the teachers are the ones who make the reports to the child protection agencies. And this is the same was happening at hospitals. There were less people going to hospitals for fear of COVID-19. So there are a lot of the family violence that usually gets noticed and the services get offered to these families, they were going unnoticed. And so we have a lot of folks living in precarious situations, and social workers have had to adapt and be very creative in order to be able to reach these families. Okay, so I'll end there so I don't take up too much more time. And leave some time for questions, if there are any. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ash, for a very rich presentation. It is fantastic to finish the first session with sharp analysis on the inequality and how social workers address this inequality. So we'll move to the question. We have about 5 to 10 minutes for questions. You can directly ask question whether in Bahasa Indonesia or in English. I invite the participant to ask question. What about the, okay, while we are waiting for the question from the participants, one of the interesting thing that you mentioned is that the COVID-19 produced inequality among subgroup of people based on gender, immigration status, etc. I just wanna follow up this about how this inequality is produced because of the COVID-19, based on the many aspects of the subgroup of the people. For instance, based on the gender, how the inequality is produced based on the immigration status, etc. Thank you very much.
Great question. So I think that the pandemic has highlighted and exacerbated existing inequalities. So it's highlighted the ways that our current social structures and social systems already operate. So the vulnerabilities were already existing and were already there. And throwing in a pandemic really just exacerbated them and made them worse. So like I said, some of the vulnerabilities based on gender are, women are overwhelmingly in lower paid fields. They are working in high risk occupations. So, and often are the ones responsible for childcare. So when schools close, as they have many times here, often women are forced to leave work and lose income and employment to stay home and take care of the children when they're not able to go to school. I don't know if that answers your question. I can. I think I see another question in the chat about factors related to domestic violence.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak to that one?
Yes. So please, Mas Idan, to show the questions. Can you share screen? Yeah. Okay, so I can see the question now. So I will read the question for you. Without emergency benefit response, what are the specific causing factors of domestic violence? How social workers deal with that during the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. I think domestic violence as a whole is a very complex phenomenon with many contributing factors. I think that specifically the increased risk of domestic violence during the pandemic is likely caused by the extra stressors that families are facing during this time. So all of the emotional dysregulation that comes with having to face constant uncertainty and constant threats and constant changes in daily life can bring extra conflict at home. It can bring folks to, not really act as their best self in their relationships with their partners and children and family members. But also, I think that the isolation provides perpetrators of violence who maybe more intentionally trying to dominate and control within their families. It provides them with an environment in which they can dominate and control with impunity, meaning that there are less teachers, there are less social workers, there are less community members in their lives that are connected and see what's happening in their family on a daily basis. And so that allows for situations of family violence to escalate, or less of these situations to get reported, and for social workers to come in and provide the supports needed. So I hope that answers that question as well.
Thank you very much, Ash. It was very fantastic point. So the next, I will invite the others participant to ask questions. Okay. I have another question. One of the interesting point that you mentioned is about the graph. The people who are affected can recover, and the people who are not recover. Would you please explain more who are the people who can easily recover, and the people who is not the who are not the easily recover from the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
generally, the folks, the individuals and families who are able to recover more easily are folks who are landowners or homeowners, folks with significant wealth to create a financial buffer when something like this happens. So either they are continuing to work, or if they have stopped working, they have enough savings or assets to protect them from financial ruin. Or they work in sectors or fields where they can work from home. And generally those sectors are ones where you need a higher level of education. And we know that access to education also is not equal among all groups in society. So that's generally the folks who are doing better. And I think that the folks who are having a much harder time are folks who don't have that sense, that capacity to have a financial buffer. So whether they are still working or have lost their jobs due to the pandemic, they don't have savings that can carry them through a few months of no income. They don't have connections to family members who can provide them with financial support. They work in low-paying jobs that may be very precarious. So these are generally the two groups that we see. I see one question here, and I think that I didn't quite get to it before, was specifically the role of social workers. And I see one around helping communities to reduce the sense of stress, but then also I think there was, how can social workers deal with domestic violence during the pandemic? So I think that, and I didn't get to that, I'm sorry, when I was speaking about domestic violence, but I think that to reach the families who are the most vulnerable, we're gonna have to be very creative in balancing protecting ourselves and using, the health and sanitary measures and precautions that we need to keep ourselves safe and healthy, but also figuring out how we can safely reach those families. So often that's, one of the things is, we're doing a lot of remote work right now. We're doing a lot of Zoom meetings and phone calls. And I think one thing we have to keep in mind with folks living in family violence situations is generally when folks are reaching out for help, they want to keep it very discreet. And it might be even a safety issue of keeping, it discreet that they're reaching out to a social worker. And so you have to be really creative in finding ways to meet with your clients that doesn't alert, potentially their abuser that they're reaching out for help. if that is a safety concern. So, you know, social workers have, you know, met clients in grocery stores, or, you know, supported people through text, or, you know, they've, you know, I think it's a time where we really need to think outside the box of what we usually do as social workers to be able to creatively reach these families. And then what can we do to reduce the sense of stress? It's a tough one. I think that number one, I would really normalize that, you know, our bodies are responding to constant threat, constant uncertainty, constant change. And it's pretty normal that we don't feel our best. And normalizing that for folks, I think, is really important. And providing concrete coping skills is also a really great thing that you can do. So whether that's breathing techniques or mindfulness or grounding techniques, so any sort of concrete tools you can provide folks to help just sort of regulate in the moment. But I think also breaking isolation can also help folks feel less stressed. So when they feel like they have a community that they can rely on and that they're kind of in this together and they're working, you know, to support each other, folks generally feel their stress alleviate a bit. So if you can connect people to their community, if you can help them find ways to create connection in their lives, generally, I think it will definitely help reduce those stress levels.
Thank you very much. We have some participants would like to ask directly the question.
Sure.
Yeah, please. You can directly ask the question. I see someone raise hand. Yeah. Okay, we lost the person who raised hand
Okay.
for asking the question directly. Okay, I think all of the question already addressed. Yeah, and okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that brings us to the end of the first session, as all of the questions already addressed. And I would like to really thanks so much to Ash Lowenthal. It was really a fantastic and informative session. We also had some wonderful questions from the audience. And then please join me to give virtual applause to Ash Lowenthal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ash Lowenthal.
I have to leave you all now because I have to go to bed. So, but it was really great to see all your little faces and be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ash Lowenthal. Thank you.
Bye.
Now we move to the next agenda, second session. Firstly, I would like to greet and welcome all speakers and check whether are they already joined our webinar. The first, I would like to greet Professor Zulkarnain Ahmad Hatta in Malaysia. Are you with us, Professor?
Assalamualaikum, I'm here.
Oh, thank you very much. Great. I also would like to greet Ibu Ropah. Good morning, Ibu Ropah in Indonesia. Are you with us, Ibu Rektor?
Yes, I'm with you, Mas Solil. Good morning,
thank
everyone.
You. Thank you so much. And the last one, I would like to greet Bapak Tufal Musyaddad in Australia. Are you with us, Mas Tufal? Are you with us, Mas Tufal?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Great. So without further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce our distinguished speaker. The first speaker is Professor Zulkarnain Ahmad Hatta. He is currently president of Asean and Pacific Association for Social Work Education. His research interest is in spirituality in social work, policy on poverty mitigation, and social work education. The second speaker is Bapak Tufal Musyaddad. He is currently an associate lecturer in social work at Charles Darwin University. And the last speaker is Associate Professor Ibu Ropah. She is currently a coordinator for the master program at the Graduate Studies of State Islamic University, Universitas Islam UIN Sunan.
Ojo mutar meneh ya kok mutar meneh guys. Aduh, aku naik web kayak zoom deg-degan ya loh. Kayak listriknya mati ininya ini kan.
So I think there is something wrong with the connection from Jogja.
Yeah, I think we are losing Mas Ulil. Hello everyone.
Halo Bu Rokfah, jangan-jangan listriknya mati juga tuh di kampus.
Iya, Mas Tufel listrik saya mati kok jadi mati juga di sini. I hope not. I'm approaching campus now and hopefully everything is fine.
Ya, ya, ya. Oh, masih di jalan ya, Mbak Rokfah ya?
Iya, betul. We losing everyone. Coba saya WA ke panitia.
نعم.
Mungkin Mas Izul bisa take over aja untuk sementara, nanti nunggu Mas Ulil masuk lagi.
MC-nya masih bisa dengar suara kami kah? Mbak Kuni?
Iya Bu.
Ini kok Pak Ulil mendadak mati ya?
Nggih. Ini sedang saya hubungi juga Bu. Coba.
My apologies, Professor Zulkarnain, for this technical difficulty. Hopefully, he's going to come back soon.
No problem, I can wait. How are you, Dr. Opa?
Yeah, I think the committee seems to have technical difficulties.
Baik Bu, ini Bapak Ulil segera masuk kembali. Iya. Baik, Bapak Ulil sudah bisa terhubung kembali.
Oke, ladies and gentlemen.
Ini biar nama coba injak kan tanya lu.
Iya, buono,
Kan injak ini.
For the because of Oh itu. Apa ini? Ya. Teman-teman, halo. Ya, di sana aja berarti ya. Nggak apa-apa pakai ini. Cari kedudukan dulu.
Ternyata mati semua ini. PAU juga mati. Saya sudah di PAU mati juga. Gimana dong?
Ya. Hah? Udah?
Nah, ya. Ini, Pak. Sebentar. Ini apa?
Mohon maaf Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini di kampus ada pemadaman listrik. Mohon maaf menunggu, ada beberapa teknis yang harus diselesaikan.
Baik Bapak dan Ibu, kita lanjutkan ya. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, because of the technical problem, the electricity is off, so we have to stop little bit for the solving this issue. So I think it is like what mentioned, our experience also in the previously, that it is some kind of like synchrotron for some people said in the peak, motion, so it will be stopped. So we will continue now for the like sequel in film. Yeah, so we will continue. So I'll continue to introduce our our speakers. Yeah, the last speaker is our Ibu Rector. Yeah, she is currently a coordinator for the master program at the Graduate Studies of the State Islamic University. So the speaker will talk about 20 minutes, and once the presentation happens, there will be combined question and answer. At the end of the presentation, there are two ways to ask question. The first is please type your question on the chat function on your screen. And the second is you can ask directly your question after the presentation. So you can use Bahasa Indonesia for the question. You also can write your question while you are listening to the speakers. I have to stop here, ladies and gentlemen, to give sufficient time to the talk. I would like to invite our first speaker, Professor Zulkarnain Ahmad Hatta, who is going to talk about the role of social workers during COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. Please give round of applause for Professor Zulkarnain. Professor Zulkarnain, I over to you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ulil, our session moderator. Thank you to all the organizers for inviting me to this auspicious occasion. Special thanks to Honorable Professor Dr. Al-Makin, the Rector of the University, Honorable Professor Hajah Murhomah, the Dean of Faculty of Dawah and Communication, and our guest speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Harapan, Secretary of R&D, Kemensos. A little bit introduction of myself. I'm Zulkarnain Hatta, presently the president of APASWE, and Indonesia is special to me because I have been going to STKS since 2007 for 7 years, supervising S3 candidates. So I have a lot of good friends at STKS and also a few at DEPSOS. I'll be speaking more on education rather than practice because being the president of the Association of Social Education, I think that's more appropriate. My topic will be on the social work challenges in the educational aspect. The outline of my 15 minutes or so speech will be a brief background of the COVID situation in my country, Malaysia. After that, we'll go into the impacts of COVID on social work education. Then we'll look into the challenges both for the students and lecturers, and finally some concluding remarks. Without further ado, I will share my screen right now. How is my audio? Everything is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have this bad habit of not sticking to the slides. Then I will take more time than necessary. So I will stick to the slides, and if it sounds repetitious of what you're reading, I'm sorry about that. So this is the topic, a brief introduction. COVID-19, which is attacking us now, salvaging the whole world, is also doing that to Malaysia. And our first case, official first case, was on the 25th of January of this year. And then around March the 15th, the country saw a significant jump in active cases. Until then, we are living life as normal. Going to work, going to school, going to cinemas and things, everything that we do, going to Pasar Malam, going to Warung, no problem. But 15 March, the Minister of Health with the relevant authorities saw that there is a spike in cases, daily cases. Because of that, the government implemented the first MCO, or the movement control order on 18th March 2020. That was our first movement control order. And then, hold on one second. That went on for 2 weeks, right up to 25th March. So our government, every time a control movement order is being implemented, they go for 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, for them to monitor, are things getting worse or are things getting better? So they are, I'm sorry, these things are popping on my window. I don't know how to get rid of it. And then around April the 10th, the MCO was extended again right up to 28th April, because obviously since March 18 right up to 10th April, things are not improving. Cases are increasing, active cases are increasing, people are being hospitalized, new clusters are being found. So the government say extend it till 28th April. And then on the 10th of May, between April and May, things are improving. When things are improving, the Malaysian government implemented the Conditional Movement Control Order, or the CMCO, which is less stringent than the MCO. Okay, MCO is very strict, whereas CMCO is less stringent. We have more movement, more sectors are being opened. We can travel across the country without any police permission. This lasted right up to 7th June. Okay, so first it was 3 levels of MCO, and then we went through CMCO because things are improving. Okay. Around August, things were much more better. Our daily cases, instead of 3 figures, it dropped to 2 figures, and even went to a single digit of daily cases. So the government say it is time for recovery. So we have the recovery movement control order right up to next year, supposedly. But somehow in October, around late October, early October, out of nowhere, and not really out of nowhere, because there was some incident that created the spike. The spike went quite dramatically back to 3 figures. In Malaysia, 3 figures is big. Okay, as opposed to some countries, 4 figures is quite normal. So the government say, okay guys, back to CMCO from RMCO, especially in Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya, state of Selangor, Labuan and Sabah, because there was an election in Sabah and it created a lot of clusters when they came back to the peninsula. And for the last week or so, our cases have been really spiking in the 4 figures, 1,000 over per day. And the government said, okay, the whole of the country, with the exception of 3 states, will be on CMCO right up to 6 December. As you know, Malaysia is made up of 13 states. So out of 13 states, 3 states are being exempted from the CMCO. So what does control orders involve? It's the same, I think, for most countries. There is a comprehensive ban on the movement and assembly of many across the country, with the exception of vital services like police, nurses, the frontliners. They have what do you call that? Unlimited movement, because they need to surface, and water services, all those things. Comprehensive restrictions on all of Malaysians traveling abroad, and those who have just returned are required to undergo a health examination and quarantine for 14 days. Restrictions on the entry of all foreign tourists and visitors to the country. Presently, Malaysian government is restricting 23 countries While our borders are not open, we are allowing some people to come back, expats and things. However, from 23 countries, Malangnya Indonesia termasuk, are those countries not allowed to come to Malaysia. Closing of all kindergartens, government and private schools, including day schools, boarding schools, and most importantly for us is the closing of all public and private higher educational institutes, the private universities and the public universities. So that will be our focus. Okay. Closure of all government institution and premises except for those vital services important for national services. So in summary, from 18th March right up to yesterday, this is the scenario. Gambaran yang umum. Our population is 32.7 million, which is small compared to Indonesia. I think Jakarta Metro is close to this. The arrival date of our friend, the COVID, is 25th January 2020. Movement control in whatever form, MCO, CMCO, RMCO, is from 18 March right up to 6 December. I am not positive that after 6 December, things will be better. I think this will go on till next year and God knows when, which month. Confirmed cases as of yesterday, 42,872. Active cases, 11,497. Recovered, 31,073. While the death in Malaysia is 302. Okay. So that is the situation, the background information of COVID situation in Malaysia. Okay. Impacts on social education. Impacts on the universities, especially. Malaysia has 8 universities offering social work programs. Okay, not many. Now, with the immediate effect of MCO, closure of the universities, there is a suspension of classes. Students were asked to go back. Those who are stuck in the university, they were being quarantined. Also, they were quote unquote, they were imprisoned in campus for quite some time, unfortunately. But there were no classes for many weeks. But once the Ministry of Education said that classes can be conducted on condition that it will be online. All on ODL or open distance learning or online streaming. So no more face-to-face classes. Whether you're in campus or you are at home in your villages and cities, your lecturer will be conducting online learning. Apart from online streaming, asynchronous learning is also being employed by some. Asynchronous learning is this. The lecturer will be having PowerPoints, whatever numbers, and for each PowerPoint, he will be elaborating and discussing and send the whole file to the students, to some portal, okay? And students can be hearing and listening to these classes according to their pace, whenever they want to listen. So that is asynchronous learning. For some lecturers, it is not that easy for them to adjust because they are so used, especially the old timers like me, we are so used to face and be talking for whatever hours or minutes. Then software such as Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, they are popping left and right to be used by both the lecturers and students. Some of both students and lecturers have never heard of all this before. Okay, because mind you, not all of us are social media freaks or interested in all of this. So with COVID coming in, we are forced to be familiar with all these apps to conduct our teaching successfully. High bandwidth internet connections are badly needed across the country. So that is one of the biggest challenges for us. We just experienced with just now a few minutes ago with our moderator. Internet was out for whatever reason, the electricity out, a bad connection, and it's interrupted. Good thing it only went for no more than 3 minutes. What if it goes on for hours? So classes abandoned, right? So that is a real challenge. So the challenges for social education. It is good internet connection and adequate digital devices have to be provided by the authorities, by the government across the nation. Even if you're in a city, it does not mean that you will have good connection. You might be in an apartment, and for whatever reason, your building is blocking the wave coming in. So that might interrupt. What about those students or those lecturers who are in the villages? Because I mentioned lecturers because some lecturers taking this opportunity to go back to the village, even though they might be in the city. So once they are back in the village, the internet facility and infrastructure is not as good as in the city. So there was a case, a student somewhere in one state, he went up on top of a tree to get a good connection for him to sit for his exam. And this created a sort of debacle in the country, criticizing the authorities that they need to improve on the services of Wi-Fi or broadband and broadband. Then we have the challenge of meeting the Ministry of Education Standard Operating Procedures, Protocol, SOP, and the Malaysian Qualification Agency, the MQA. They are providing with this pandemic, new rulings are coming up, and the universities have to cope up with the new demands, right? So apart from teaching, we have to do a lot of paperwork to meet the requirements from Ministry of Education and the MQA. Universities have the universities have invested a huge amount of money on digital platform by subscribing WebEx professionally. As you know, these are all not free, WebEx professionals. So to give all the lecturers, so if a university has God knows hundreds of lecturers, everybody will be given an account. So that costs a lot of money for the universities. Teaching plans have to be overhauled or be edited, because when COVID came to Malaysia, we were in the midst of our first semester. Some universities, they are entering their final exam week. Then everything was frozen. And when it started, students are being behind a couple of weeks. So we have to finish the semester. When we have to finish the semester, everything has to be accelerated. So when it comes the second semester, we started late. So as an example, a 14-week semester will now be done in 7 weeks. It goes on intensive online lectures. So not only timetable have to be overhauled, coursework, assignment, and final exams. For fieldwork, digital practicum is being conducted. I will explain that a little bit later on. And then when students don't have to go to campus, right? Initially, most of the students are feeling a sense of happiness. Oh, no class, no need to go to lecture, go home, balik kampung. So initially there was a sense of happiness. But
I do apologize, Professor. So
yeah,
you have 1 more minute.
Okay, so that's another, from happiness to frustration. And then communication through online sometimes can be frustrating, line interruption, bad connection. Some students don't even bother to submit, don't bother to come to class, in front of the internet computer. They don't bother to submit the assignment. Practicum challenges from 400 to 500, from 800 to 1,000 hours have now been reduced to 400 to 500. Practicum only in their hometown. What if the hometown or the villages have nothing? So that's another issue. Supervision through phone calls. So a lot of challenges. And then you have personal challenges like being at home, being disrupted by the family. Family do not understand all these things. Being distracted by your children, by your siblings, doing house chores. So they are facing this issue too. And because of all this, many students are requesting refunds for some sort of discount for their education. And some are not even thinking to, should I not join the program anymore? Because there are so many uncertainties. And staff are having problem too, because they are not all staff, as I mentioned earlier, are techno savvy. Okay. So in conclusion, we are changing from the traditional ways of teaching to digital. And these have impacted both us lecturers and the students. Now, social work needs face-to-face. This is my stand. It cannot be done online. So this is our biggest challenges, because both lecturers and students are feeling the level of education, the quality of education in social work has been greatly compromised because of COVID. And this new norm will take some time before it is being fully embraced and being fully structured to fit the time that we are going through now. So I stop my presentation here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Zulkarnain. It was very rich and fantastic presentations. Before we continue to the next speaker, I'd like to remind you that you can participate by asking questions on chat function on your screen. And the next speaker, I will invite Ibu Rofa.
Yeah. Okay.
Who is going to discuss about Indonesian social workers in the midst of COVID-19, strengthening profession and building alliance. Silakan Bu Rektor.
Thank you very much, Mas Ulil, for your time. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
First of all, I would like to say my greeting to my colleague and my Dean, Professor Dr. Haji Marhumah MPD, the Dean of Faculty of Dakwah and Communications, and also the speaker today, Bapak dari Kementerian Sosial. I'm sorry, his name is a little bit escaped from my memories, and also Professor Zulkarnain Ahmad Hatta, the President of Asia Pacific Association for Social Work Education. Hello, Prof. Zulkarnain. I think this is not the first time for us to meet. And then Mas Tufel said that our alumni is very happy to see you today and having a discussion with you. And also my colleague from Social Work Department, yang hormat Ibu Ketua Kepala Prodi, Ibu Soleha, and also Bu Andayani as a Secretary of the Department, dan juga semuanya. Bahagia sekali pada pagi hari ini saya bisa ketemu dengan Bapak Ibu semuanya, para mahasiswa, para alumni, dan para kolega social work yang punya kesempatan untuk hadir pada yang hari ini. I'm going to deliver my presentation bilingually because I believe that most of us are Indonesian, and perhaps it will be much more convenient to have a conversation and discussion in Bahasa Indonesia. And I believe that Professor Zulkarnain also related to language as well. My talk today, I think some of my presentation has been discussed earlier by previous presenter, particularly from the Ministry of Social Welfare. So what I'm going to deliver today is I'm afraid that I'm not going to deliver the voices from the field in detail, but what I'm going to present is a very large and macro perspective on what's going on in the world of social work in the middle of COVID-19. I would like to positioning this presentation and the position that we have in Indonesia in the pause or after the promulgation or the inauguration of Social Welfare Act of 2019. This is a big success of social worker in Indonesia after being struggling for many years to have our own act, and finally we have this regulation. And I think everybody and each and every one of us is happy with this development. Next, monggo silahkan selanjutnya, Ibu. Saya operasi sendiri aja biar lebih mudah. Oke. Yeah, my point today, the COVID-19 outbreak that followed the promulgation of Social Worker Act of 2019 provide opportunity and challenges for Indonesian social worker to, in one hand, is strengthening. Ini mau siapa dulu nih? Sorry. Saya yang share aja ya, Bapak-bapak dan Ibu-ibu. Oke. My point today is datangnya COVID-19 yang sangat berdekatan dengan berlakunya Undang-Undang Pekerjaan Sosial 2019 sebenarnya memberikan kesempatan dan juga tantangan bagi pekerja sosial di Indonesia untuk yang pertama adalah memperkuat posisi dan juga identitas kita sebagai social worker. Kemudian yang kedua, pada saat yang sama kita juga dituntut untuk developing networking with wider stakeholders. Nah, dalam konteks ini nanti kita harus bicara tentang bagaimana kita harus bekerja multi-team dan bagaimana kita harus memperkenalkan diri, terutama dalam konteks helping profession yang lain. And the second point that I would like to back is reviewing government social protection policy. I think the previous speaker from the Ministry of Social Welfare already mentioned about expanding social protections. And I think reviewing that direction of the policy, we need to think about new form of alliance and cooperation of non-government actors. Non-government actors has always been and something to be very significant role in providing social protection and service in Indonesia. And another point that it is interesting for me to notice, I think we have some sort of shifting paradigm in social protection from purely humanitarian tool to much more as economic recovery. And the other point is about the inclusion of social protection. This is something that really close to my daily teaching and activities dealing with the minority groups and the vulnerable populations. Okay, just a little bit reminder about the number of the people affected by the COVID in Indonesia. This is the data from yesterday. Affected number is very much high. It's 448.118 thousands people. I remember then when the first outbreak is happening around March or April, I check the number on daily basis and the number is only like 2,000. And after that, I forgot to check anymore because the number is always peaking. And today we have like 448. This is a very huge number in whatever aspect. I identify 3 areas where in governments and also community dealing with the social COVID. Jadi menurut saya ada 3 aspek, ada 3 area di mana masyarakat dan pemerintah Indonesia merespon terhadap COVID-19. Yang pertama adalah seperti yang sudah saya sampaikan tadi, talking about ending social protection. Kemudian yang kedua adalah terkait dengan adjustment of social service delivery atau penyesuaian dalam menyelenggarakan dan memberikan pelayanan sosial di area manapun, apakah itu anak, apakah itu lansia, dan yang lainnya. Kemudian yang ketiga adalah development of new services and programs. Ini saya pikir juga muncul bagaimana program-program yang baru dilakukan untuk dealing dengan isu mereka yang terafeksi oleh COVID. Now we're talking about expanding social protection. Mungkin saya tidak perlu lagi banyak untuk mengulangi ini karena tadi sudah disampaikan bagaimana conditional cash transfer, yaitu PKH secara signifikan itu kemudian diperluas, baik itu in terms of areas of coverage, wilayahnya diperluas, jumlah penerimanya diperluas, kemudian juga secara total uang yang diterima juga ditingkatkan, dan juga sumber dari PKH yang dulunya hanyalah APBN sekarang juga APBD masuk ke dalam sumber-sumber PKH. Nah, secara luas the expansion of social protection bisa dilihat dalam konteks ini. Kita punya conditional cash transfer yang sekarang mencapai 10 juta penerima. Kemudian kita juga dihadapkan dengan, atau kita juga, pemerintah juga memberikan bantuan bahan pokok pangan yang itu tadi sudah disampaikan mencapai 20 juta keluarga. Kemudian yang baru, ini adalah yang baru, subsidi listrik, kemudian juga unemployment insurance atau yang sering dikenal dengan kartu prakerja, itu bisa berupa kas, bantuan secara tunai untuk 4 bulan, dan juga bantuan untuk belajar atau meningkatkan skill. Nah, di samping program nasional ini, kemudian Jakarta tentu saja punya program khusus karena mereka adalah komunitas urban yang sangat terimpact dengan ini, maka APBD daerah Jakarta mengeluarkan juga bantuan-bantuan ini. So in total, I think when we see this expansion of social protection program in an initiative, I think Indonesia right now is really closer to welfare state. And the question, of course, is will we be able to extend this until after the post COVID-19, or apakah kita punya uang cukup untuk bisa meneruskan program-program ini setelah COVID-19, atau bagaimana? Nah, ini yang perlu juga kita pikirkan. I think the most important part of that expansion of social protection is I noticed that there is a shifting paradigm of social protection. Kalau dulunya yang namanya perlindungan sosial, kita ketemu dengan bagaimana kita memberikan basic hidup ya kepada penerima, yang itu adalah seperti sudah disampaikan 8% dari masyarakat termiskin di Indonesia. Tetapi yang menarik misalnya dengan program unemployment benefit atau kartu prakerja dan juga bantuan terhadap keluarga yang memiliki penghasilan 5 juta ke bawah, maka sebenarnya tujuan dan fungsi dari perlindungan sosial melalui bantuan-bantuan tadi tidak hanya bicara tentang survival, tetapi bicara dalam konteks yang lebih luas, itu bagaimana agar ekonomi itu tetap bergerak. Nah, ini yang menurut saya perubahan paradigma yang cukup signifikan dan perlu kita renungkan, karena mungkin nanti impact-nya juga akan besar. Tentu saja yang namanya perlindungan sosial selama ini selalu juga berimplikasi terhadap kemampuan penerima untuk membelanjakan dan berbelanja dan membeli bahan pokok gitu. Tapi dengan adanya target-target baru dalam social protection, dalam bantuan-bantuan sosial, saya melihat bahwa ini tidak hanya terkait dengan tadi survival saja, tapi betul-betul perlindungan sosial itu menjadi alat untuk economic recovery. Nah, tentu saja ada challenges and problem yang dihadapi oleh social worker. Nah, ini kembali kepada tugas kita, the role of social worker in this expanding social protections. One of the questions that's always haunted us as social worker and also government adalah apakah targetnya itu sudah tepat. Kita dengar berbagai dinamika di lapangan bahwa yang menerima bukan pemilik yang tepat, yang seharusnya menerima tidak menerima, dan sebagainya dan sebagainya. Nah, salah satu isu yang menjadi faktor dari whether or not the protection is reaching the right person adalah terkait dengan data. Seperti yang kita tahu, Bapak, Ibu, dan rekan-rekan kolega para mahasiswa, data yang digunakan adalah data yang tersentralisasi dari pemerintah. Nah, update tentu saja ini selalu dilakukan gitu, tetapi cerita dari teman-teman di lapangan saya yakin banyak sekali dan menunjukkan bagaimana kompleksitas dari data itu, dan ini yang masih menjadi persoalan besar. Kemudian dinamika distribusi yang lain, misalnya ada kepala desa yang kemudian memutuskan bahwa instead of giving it to those who really in need and then creating social jealousy and then social protection or caste conditional caste transfer is distributed equally amongst warga desa. Nah, ini kearifan lokal tentu saja yang mungkin tidak sesuai dengan bagaimana program itu sebenarnya diinisiasi, tapi ini menjadi menarik gitu untuk didiskusikan dalam konteks dinamika distribusi and delivery of social protections. Kemudian yang juga penting adalah, saya yakin nih teman-teman kolega di lapangan, Mas Jena dan beberapa teman yang lain pendamping PKH ini tentu saja dengan diluaskannya coverage dari social protection dan PKH tadi ini menambah banyak sekali kasus yang harus ditangani para peksos. Dulu saja satu orang pendamping itu bisa menangani 200 sampai 300 kepala keluarga. And I don't know how much more that you guys are having in this expanding protection program. The last point, the last challenges, and I think this is very much close to my area, is the inclusion of social protections. Apakah perlindungan sosial kita itu sudah cukup inklusif? Nah, tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Asros Wental dari Kanada bagaimana isu tentang social justice dan the most vulnerable group of the community. I think selama ini aksesibilitas perlindungan sosial dan bantuan-bantuan sosial itu masih menjadi masalah bagi sebagian populasi, baik itu mereka yang secara politis atau secara sosial itu terpinggirkan. Antaranya adalah people with disabilities, aging community, kemudian mereka yang hidup di area-area yang sangat sulit. Ini teman-teman Peksos juga sangat paham bagaimana harus mendistribusikan bantuan di daerah-daerah yang sangat sulit untuk diraih. Kemudian tentu saja perempuan dan anak-anak yang tadi seperti sudah disampaikan, escalating number of domestic violence and others. Nah, ini semester ini misalnya saya yakin itu Bu Andayani sedang riset tentang single mother dan bagaimana kondisinya dalam COVID. Kemudian juga saya sedang penelitian tentang bagaimana religious minority Indonesia itu juga dealing dengan isu COVID. Apakah seandainya mereka memberikan bantuan, apakah bantuannya juga diterima orang, dan apakah juga mereka menerima bantuan dari pemerintah atau aktor-aktor di luar pemerintah yang lain. People with disability tentu saja ini juga satu kelompok yang sangat penting untuk dibicarakan ketika bicara aksesibilitas dan social inclusion. Selama ini masih banyak sekali hal-hal yang belum bisa di-cover dengan adanya social protection yang ada. Riset saya terkait dengan additional cost of being disability atau bagaimana menjadi difabel itu sebenarnya butuh additional cost ya, butuh uang yang lebih untuk bisa mengcover basic need. Dan ini selama ini sama sekali belum masuk ke dalam skema perlindungan sosial yang ada. Kemudian ini terkait dengan teman-teman di lapangan, adjustment of service delivery, penyesuaian-penyesuaian yang perlu dilakukan terkait dengan service delivery, ada online service, health protocol, kemudian juga temporary family reintegration. Yang saya maksud dari yang terakhir adalah pemulangan beberapa komunitas dari panti karena kita masih sangat institutional based. Indonesia is very much remain to be institutional based services, balai rehabilitasi, panti dan sebagainya itu adalah salah satu core dari social service kita. Maka dalam konteks COVID kemudian ada isu tentang pemulangan dan sebagainya sebagai bagian dari safety procedures. Nah, I think this is so much of the one of the issue that we have to deal with. Nah, dalam konteks family services, pekerja sosial juga dihadapkan dengan berbagai aktivitas baru dan tugas baru yang perlu dilakukan. Misalnya adalah educating family on term of health protocols, bagaimana memakai masker, mencuci tangan dan sebagainya. This is very important part. Kemudian yang kedua adalah developing safe household environments. Ini juga sangat penting, ini terkait dengan tadi kita sudah bicara tentang domestic violence, tapi yang juga sangat penting adalah bagaimana psychological well-being yang harus kita jaga dalam kondisi COVID ini juga memiliki impact yang sangat besar terhadap bagaimana keluarga. Dinamika keluarga itu menjadi sedikit terganggu gitu misalnya. Nah, ini penting untuk menjaga itu. Kemudian juga gathering community support for isolated individual and family. Mereka yang terafeksi dengan COVID dan mereka harus melakukan isolasi, ini juga butuh jawaban yang cukup yang harus ada gitu. Nah, selama ini kita juga bicara tentang stigma, misalnya salah satunya di awal-awal kita sudah sangat melihat bagaimana stigma terhadap mereka yang terafeksi dengan COVID itu kemudian menghadirkan kita dengan sekali lagi diskriminasi dan perspektif negatif dari masyarakat. Ini adalah PR besar bagi Peksos bagaimana mengedukasi masyarakat terkait dengan ini. Kemudian better access to education and health services. I think tadi Profesor Zulkarnain sudah menunjukkan bagaimana dunia pendidikan Peksos itu harus berhadapan dengan isu ini ya, dan ini tidak hanya dunia Peksos juga, tapi every single person in this planet who receive education is struggling to adjust to the new way of learning, and this create issues like accessibility, internet access, and others. Kemudian tentu saja tadi sudah saya sebutkan inclusion of the most vulnerable group and family members. Oke. Ini isu yang lain adalah mental health issue dengan adanya agendas, additional agenda in every aspect, and then we are burn out as a social worker. Maka perlulah kita dampingan dan dukungan psychosocial services, dan ini sudah mulai dilakukan oleh banyak pihak. IPPSI sudah membuka ini dari awal, saya pikir ini sebuah langkah yang sangat bagus. Nah, ini yang penting, terakhir yang ingin saya ekspansi agak banyak. Non-government initiative. Kita melihat bahwa dalam konteks COVID ini, peran non-government sectors, non-government aktor itu sangat penting. Apakah itu religious organization, political parties, we should underline this. Kemudian professional association and some sort of international funding is also playing, although it's not as much as it used to be. Nah, pada saat yang sama juga, we are facing community-based initiative, in which is very important. I think the picture that I saw here, that I display here, is very much telling you guys that we have a very good community and neighborhood initiative. Neighborhood food bank is everywhere. Siapa saja yang mencantelkan makanan silahkan diambil, tapi juga ingat yang lain banyak yang membutuhkan. Kemudian juga self-initiation of safety procedure and protocols, lockdown lokal yang dilakukan oleh semua komunitas, sampai kita membuat banyak meme karena nulis lockdown-nya juga banyak macam-macam gitu ya. Nah, apa
Mohon
yang
maaf Ibu,
ya
1 menit lagi.
Oke. Ini yang terakhir, Mas. Jadi tadi saya berpikir bahwa ini tadi terkait dengan aliansi dan networking yang harus kita lakukan. Dengan adanya peran yang sangat penting dari civic organization, maka saya berpikir ya, ini pemerintah juga jalan dengan expanding, kemudian civic organization juga jalan. Apakah ada kemungkinan kita membangun aliansi yang lebih bagus? Data itu selalu menjadi masalah dalam social protection. Kalau misalnya pemerintah itu sharing data dengan non-government actors, itu mungkin akan menjadi satu solusi dalam addressing those in need. Selama ini kan jalan-jalan sendiri itu. Kemudian yang kedua adalah bagaimana networking dan aliansi kita dengan other helping professions. Ini penting, professional identity, social worker belum terlalu dikenal, tetapi kita harus kerja multidisciplinary team di sebuah aspek. Harus dengan psychologist, dengan psychiatrist, and other. Kemudian bagaimana we managing the social and professional boundaries, tapi juga strengthening the identity. I think this is very challenging task for us. And the other adalah komunitas. I think revitalizing community role in social protection ini menjadi isu yang penting, melihat bagaimana inisiatif tadi, maka social protection yang less procedural itu menjadi jawaban bagi kondisi-kondisi seperti ini, meskipun semoga kita berharap tidak akan terjadi di masa depan. That's all, Mas Ulin and all my presentation today. Semoga bisa sedikit memberikan insight bagaimana peran dan juga arah dari profesi pekerja sosial di Indonesia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ibu Rofa. It was very rich information and fantastic presentations. Sebelum kita lanjut ke pembicara selanjutnya, kami mohon kepada teman-teman untuk menulis pertanyaannya di kolom chat yang sudah disediakan, sehingga nanti akan lebih memudahkan panitia untuk mengorganisir diskusi di sesi selanjutnya. For the next speaker, I will invite Mas Tufal Musyadat, who will talk about the role of social workers in COVID-19 pandemic, lesson learned from Australia. Please give round of applause to Mas Tufal Musyadat. The time is yours, Mas.
Thank you. Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. For the first time, I'd like to say thank you so much for this opportunity. This is a really great time to be back to my previous university. And for those who know me, I graduated from the Interdisciplinary Islamic Studies, the first batch in 2005. And one of my colleagues, Pak Rafiq, is now is the director of the the postgraduate study, I think. And look, I know that first thing, thank you for all these opportunities, and I'll like to keep my presentation as interesting as possible. I know this it's all the audience has been like sitting there for 2.5 hours, and I would like to give it short and simple any way possible. But I would like to say yang saya hormati Pak Profesor Al-Makin, beliau adalah guru kita juga, dan saya sempat ketemu beliau tahun 2018 waktu berkunjung di Adelaide. Alhamdulillah, semoga amanah yang baru tambah berkah gitu ya. And also Honorable Ibu Profesor Marhumah as the Dean of the Faculty of Dawah Communication, also all the Civitas Academica juga, dan Honorable Bapak Harapan Gaul from the Ministry of Social Affairs, and respectable speakers. Ash, probably he's falling asleep already. Professor Zulkarnain from Malaysia, and as the president of the Asia Pacific Association of Social Work Education, and also Ibu Rofa dari UIN Jogja, dan beliau adalah lecturer dan juga salah satu tokoh di balik berdirinya Pusat Layanan Disabilitas, which is I admire a lot, and I'm following the activities of the center, which is quite a pioneer. And I also respect, like we have the Juru Bahasa in this session, which is great. This is one of the great examples to other webinars around Indonesia, that we need to be more inclusive as possible. And we have the sign language person there, which is great. And also, last but not least, Pak Ulil selaku moderator, dan juga Mbak MC dan Pak Izul yang sempat ngontak saya. Look, I would like to present this paper in both Bahasa Indonesia and English. English just because the title is in English, Bahasa Indonesia karena kita kayak keluarga sendiri aja, karena saya juga alumni dari UIN Jogja juga, jadi kita ngobrolnya lebih santai. Look, it is like I said, this is the great honor for me to be here, and I would like to talk in three parts. My talk is about, one is the pandemic as a general, what to understand about the pandemic, and the second one, the snapshot about the response from the Australian government to the COVID-19, and also the last one, what would be the role of social work, what we are doing in the groundwork so far. And I think this is the way that we can revisit and always, like rethinking what would be the best, possible moving forward as a social worker as a profession. And I'd like to make this disclaimer here. And of course, I cannot speak on behalf of, all social workers in Australia, but at least I could share my personal experience and observation as a social worker as well as an academic. So that for this, I have made this disclaimer here. Anything that I share today is from me personally, as a proud alumni of interdisciplinary Islamic studies from the State Islamic University in Sunan Kalijaga, and also and I'm not the representative from my university. Also, I'm the proud member, academic member of the College of Health and Human Sciences here in Charles Darwin University. So before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners, custodian of the land that I'm presenting the paper today, which is the Larrakia people, and as the traditional owners of the Darwin region, and extend my respect to the elders, past and present and future and emerging, and respect Aboriginal people attending our session today. As you can see, Larrakia people is the Aboriginal Australian people here around Darwin and Northern Territory. Larrakia mean saltwater people because they have vibrant traditional cross relationship between the sea and the trade and neighboring groups. So I mean, like when I use the background is actually the symbol of the Larrakia people. And now, so what actually COVID done to us? So what we are encountering really is not a disaster or a catastrophe, of a kind which we have some familiarity, such as like bushfires, floods, wars, mass migration. It is not something that's on the scale simultaneously as a global and local, for which a few adequately prepared, from which even fewer were protected. So the implications quite magnitude and akibat dari COVID ini sangat global dan semua merasakan di level yang berbeda. Jadi ini virus yang kita tidak ada di kita yang imun dari salah satu dari virus ini, dan semua like it or not, kita suka atau tidak suka, we are active participants in experience, and that is radically overturning any previous complacency and take for grantedness of what we used to be in every daily life. So, but the greater significance is how this pandemic has stripped away the social construction to reveal the extremely severe of our societies. With a painful clarity, we observe that actually those who are not equal are revealed as critically at risk, vulnerable, bearing the brunt of the pandemic impact, such as those who are poor, itu yang orang yang miskin, kemudian homeless, living with disabilities, refugees, asylum seekers. Even in Australia, we have the asylum seekers from people experiencing war from overseas, and victims of domestic and family violence as well, Indigenous people, Indigenous Australia, Aboriginal people, and people who are incarcerated, which is people in prison, in jail, and also people who are in margin, including people living in the remote area of Australia or even in Indonesia. And this is actually this is just the picture just to show you that actually what I meant by taken for grantedness kind of lifestyle. In this occasion, you cannot really, see your friends. You can have a dinner outside with your friends. You can get together. There are limited numbers of people can get together in some event, in some, occasion. And a lot of activities that we've done in the past, we need to do it like we need to do it like online, and it's create new problem for everyone in different levels, right? So now, I'm showing you what happened in Australia actually. So this is what's happening in Australia. So this is to show you that COVID first confirmed in Australia in the late 2020, possibly in the 22nd of January 2020. And this is the data that I pull up on Monday, on the 9th, the total number of COVID-19 cases since 22nd of January 2020. So if you can see the table there, this is 27,668. So 27,000 orang yang kena COVID di Australia, hampir 28,000. Tapi perlu diingat bahwa jumlah penduduk di Australia itu hanya 30 juta. Jadi kalau dilihat mungkin sekitar hampir 10, kalau 10% barangkali ya. Nggak ada 10%, 1%. Dan dibandingkan dengan Indonesia tentu ini konteks yang berbeda. Kalau dilihat dari number tadi tentu saja nilai jumlahnya lebih banyak. It's a lot bigger than in Indonesia. So this page, I mean, in Australia we have So I just move on to the government response. So what the government is doing now? The government is launch the information with using the One's portal. Like satu organisasi, satu lembaga di pemerintahan yang secara centralized, secara terpusat mengelola data ini adalah Department of Health. Kalau di Indonesia mungkin Kementerian Kesehatan itu sebagai the leading agency. Okay. Kemudian masyarakat bisa masuk, you can access the website and also to get all the information about the COVID. So they're also active in social media such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But also, I mean, in the state and territory governments, pemerintahan di tingkat lokal, di tingkat masing-masing state negara bagian, mereka juga punya andil. Di antaranya adalah mereka juga melakukan tes terhadap orang yang tersuspek dengan virus. Kemudian ada yang memonitoring close contact atau confirm case every day. Lalu juga mengimpose yang namanya travel restriction. Jadi ini tugas-tugas masing-masing negara bagian. Misalnya seperti negara bagian Victoria dan South Australia, baru nanti di akhir minggu ini akan bordernya dibuka. Karena memang beberapa minggu terakhir ini di Victoria mereka melakukan istilahnya bukan lockdown sepertinya, tapi stage 4 yang kemudian karena lockdown beberapa kali. Setelah misalkan mereka sudah lockdown, kemudian ada confirm case baru, lalu lockdown lagi, dibuka lagi, kira-kira gitulah. Jadi ini mereka sudah 12 hari tanpa kasus, jadi mereka confident bahwa mereka bisa membuka border antar negara bagian. Misalnya kalau di Indonesia konteksnya misalnya Jawa Tengah dengan Jawa Timur, itu jadi orang Jawa Tengah nggak bisa masuk ke Jawa Timur. Kira-kira gitu salah satu contohnya. Nah kemudian juga the government also launched the COVID Safe app. Aplikasi ini bisa di-download di masing-masing handphone dan ini adalah sangat bermanfaat untuk mengidentifikasi kita yang terekspos dengan COVID. Kita terekspos dengan COVID, kemudian kita juga gimana cara kita memprotek. Jadi artinya kita di telepon, di HP itu kita bisa tahu bahwa oke, kita dalam jarak berapa meter dengan orang yang terkena COVID sama-sama pakai handphone. Cuman memang persoalannya kalau handphonenya ketinggalan di rumah, kita jalan-jalan, nah itu jadi agak misleading. Tapi paling tidak pemerintah sudah menyediakan aplikasi ini dan mereka tahu bahwa pengguna media sosial dan pengguna handphone sangat banyak. Artinya ini bisa sangat diapresiasi gitu. Lalu kemudian yang selanjutnya ini government responses, ini ada beberapa poin di situ. Salah satunya adalah tentang vaksin. Jadi mereka sekarang sudah menyiapkan vaksin, kemudian ada budget 17,6 economic support package. Economic support package ini juga termasuk misalkan masuk dalam beberapa program, misalnya job keeper. Job keeper itu untuk mereka yang mencari pekerjaan tetapi belum punya pekerjaan, mereka akan dapat dana setiap 2 minggu. Termasuk juga job keeper ini misalkan saya ngajar, kemudian karena COVID maka kampus kemudian dalam tanda kutip merumahkan saya, itu kemudian saya dapat tunjangan dari pemerintah dengan bayaran 2 minggu sekali. Dan itu diperpanjang, yang aslinya sampai bulan September, kemudian diperpanjang sampai Maret tahun depan. Juga kemudian ada namanya job seeker. Job seeker ini adalah orang-orang yang mirip mungkin di Indonesia seperti yang tadi disampaikan oleh Ibu Rofah tadi, tentang bagaimana it's not only survival. Social protection is not only survival, but also the economic recovery. Jadi mereka yang mencari pekerjaan itu juga tetap disupport oleh pemerintah, bahwa mereka tetap bisa makan, mereka tetap bisa memenuhi kebutuhan keseharian. Nah, lalu juga the National Health Plan. National Health Plan ini juga mencakup tentang mental health, tentang kampanye, tentang personal protective equipment, pembelian masker, pembelian APD dan segala macam. Lalu juga tentang mental health, tentang people disability itu masuk di situ. Kemudian ada subsidy isolation. Jadi subsidy isolation itu adalah ketika misalkan orang datang kena COVID kemudian harus diisolasi, itu ada subsidi dari pemerintah, misalkan dicarikan tempat, lalu kemudian membiayai makan, membiayai segala kebutuhan, itu ada subsidi dari pemerintah. Nah, Lalu kemudian termasuk juga telehealth. Telehealth ini adalah seperti tadi saya lihat di kebijakan Kemensos juga ada namanya psychoanalysis kalau nggak salah ya, counseling. Jadi counseling yang telepon, yang itu kemudian pemerintah menambah jumlah anggota orang yang bisa bekerja di bidang itu untuk membantu orang-orang yang mengalami stres karena gangguan COVID. Lalu kemudian yang selanjutnya government response ini hanya terusan saja, the response plan ini nanti mungkin bisa dilihat di share aja karena saya sekarang udah ngerasa kayak spokesperson dari pemerintah Australia. Karena yang saya sampaikan program, tapi paling tidak ini sebuah pengalaman ya. Kemudian who is the key player? I think this is the important learning lesson learned from Australia, because we have the key organization who is actually running, the response to the COVID. The key players is what we call the HPPC. Just because the COVID is health issues, so the leading agency is the agency who is dealing with the health, Department of Health, and whoever the person that's relating to the health. So kemudian selanjutnya kita harus paham bahwa yang penting juga kita harus saya share lagi adalah tentang social worker di Australia. Social worker di Australia itu kita sebagai profesi, kita bekerja di bawah namanya Asosiasi Social Worker, Australian Social Workers. Dan kita bekerja secara kolektif, individual, dan contribute to society. Dan ini mengikuti definisi dari social worker di tingkat internasional atau International Federation of Social Work. Lalu kemudian siapa itu social worker di Australia? Nah, ini menjadi penting karena mungkin agak berbeda dengan di Indonesia. Sebagai social worker kita harus punya degree S1 social work, baru bisa dianggap sebagai social worker. Atau kita menjadi member Australian Association of Social Worker. Kalau ini optional. Jadi kalau kita kemudian punya diploma 1, punya sertifikat, tapi kita bekerja di komunitas, kita tidak bisa kemudian mengklaim diri sebagai social worker, tetapi bisa jadi menjadi case worker, community workers, and something else. So it has a huge consequence. So jadi penerjemahan social worker menjadi pekerja sosial di Indonesia itu mungkin masih dikaji lagi karena nggak bisa langsung secara literal ditransfer seperti itu. Lalu kemudian selanjutnya adalah singkat saja kita juga memiliki asosiasi namanya Australian Council for Social Service. Ini jadi semua orang yang bekerja di wilayah human service itu menjadi bagian dari council ini, dan ini punya wilayah secara federal, secara Commonwealth maupun di masing-masing state ada. Lalu kemudian yang terakhir ini yang juga yang penting untuk saya share di menit terakhir, ya ini apa sebenarnya peran kita sebagai social worker. Social worker role-nya adalah ya kita sebagai anggota dari multidisciplinary team. Jadi seperti yang disampaikan oleh Ibu Rofah tadi, kita nggak bisa kerja sendiri. Dan di Australia social worker itu tidak hanya di pemerintah. Social worker ada di NGO, social worker ada di universitas, social worker ada bahkan di religious affiliated organization. Itu ya. Kemudian itu yang kita lakukan. Kemudian ini sebagai salah satu contoh, misalkan di health setting, misalkan di rumah sakit, social worker di rumah sakit adalah bekerja sebagai anggota multidisciplinary team, membantu dokter misalkan kalau pasien mau di-discharge, kita harus sebagai social worker kita harus melakukan analisis kira-kira nanti kalau setelah itu keluar dari rumah sakit support apa saja yang perlu kita berikan, termasuk orang yang punya people with disabilities. Maksudnya misalkan apakah harus ada home modification, misalkan ada pasien yang kemudian tidak tahan dengan suhu cuaca di atas 25 misalkan, itu harus ada home modification, misalkan di rumah harus ada AC atau harus ada rem. Itu kita sebagai social worker harus bisa mengadvocate itu, bekerja sama kemudian dengan organisasi NGO di luar itu, dan kita harus bisa mampu melakukan analisis, holistic analisis itu. Termasuk di education setting, ini salah satu contoh penting bahwa di field placement kayak di Indonesia ada namanya KKN. Jadi di sini juga ada KKN daring misalkan ya. Jadi di sini juga kita sempat beberapa 4 bulan saya juga menangani mahasiswa yang harus field placement karena mereka harus 500 jam ya. 500 jam untuk field placement A, field placement B itu 500 jam untuk bisa qualified social workers. Jadi kita bekerja sama dengan ASW untuk membuat satu program yang bisa dilakukan di rumah. Tapi kompetensinya masih ada tanpa harus face to face, itu modification. Kemudian di aged care setting, di Panti Jombo kita juga ada. Lalu kemudian yang terakhir adalah di family setting seperti child protection. Child protection ada lembaga khusus juga. Kemudian community service termasuk kita kemarin di Australia, kalau kawan-kawan mahasiswa yang ada di Indonesia tahu di Australia ngapain sih orang kemudian toilet paper habis, selalu habis di supermarket. Dan itu kita harus mampu mengadvokasi bahwa kita harus juga bisa melobi, harus ada limitasi ketika orang belanja, misalkan dibatasi sekian. Jadi untuk memastikan bahwa semua orang punya akses equal opportunity. Dan saya yakin semua banyak lagi, termasuk juga kita punya peran memastikan bahwa mereka yang di dalam karantin itu juga bisa terservis dengan baik. Terakhir sebagai karena penutup presentasi saya, bahwa sebagai social worker, we are not to fix. We are not to fix, kita bukan problem solver. But the most important thing is that we are to connect. Jadi tugas kita adalah mengkoneksikan klien atau masyarakat yang butuh pertolongan dengan servis yang ada. Jadi kita sebagai broker juga sebagai advocator, dan kalau belajar dari dari social work dari Northern America, kita social worker sebagai generalis praktis. Dan saya yakin di Indonesia justru lebih unik lagi karena kita punya namanya kearifan lokal dan segala macam. Dan terakhir sebelum saya akhiri, saya ada video di YouTube dan ini saya tidak akan putar tapi saya bagikan saja linknya. Jadi social workers as superhero. Jadi ini disampaikan oleh salah seorang dekan yang di School of Social Work di University of Georgia, dan I found this video is quite hilarious and encouraging, and I'm strongly suggest you to watch it. And I think that's to conclude my presentation. Pak Ulil, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mas Tufel, for very insightful presentations. We agree that you looks like you are the spokesperson for Australian government at the moment. Just kidding. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we move to the next agenda, to the question and answer sessions. So at the moment we have pretty good question ready to go. For the first round of question, I would like to read out for you the questions. The first one is from Bu Ropa. The first question.
Yes. Monggo.
With such social work challenges in Indonesia, do you see any other opportunities for social work in the future other than Undang-Undang Pekerja Sosial? And the next question is to Pak Tufel. Could you please share how the Aussie social workers develop their approaches in helping people during pandemic? And the next question is from sorry. The last question is from the last question is, how can social workers play a role during the COVID-19 pandemic as a social companion for the people with mental disorder without being stigmatized by society? I think we can start from Ibu Ropa to respond to the question. On the last question, I think to make it easier to organize it, the last question is for Professor Zulkarnain. How do universities retain the social work students' learning motivation during pandemic? Okay, I'll go to Ibu Rofa first to respond the questions.
Baik, terima kasih Mas Ulil. Tadi pertanyaannya dari siapa? Saya tidak bisa menangkap, maaf.
Yeah, the question is from Nikmah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
from Nikmah Konitas.
Mbak Nikmah Konitas ya. What is the opportunity for social work in the future? Banyak sekali Mbak. Jadi saya sampaikan tadi, tantangannya kan bagi kita sebagai Peksos itu dengan undang-undang social work yang baru itu kita profesi yang memang belum terlalu dikenal. Tetapi dengan tadi banyaknya social activities dan social program yang kita miliki di Indonesia sekarang ini dalam konteks COVID, maka ini memberikan peluang kita banyak sekali untuk mengenalkan diri bahwa kita adalah Peksos
yang tadi saya sangat setuju dengan apa yang disampaikan Mas Tufel. Pekerjaan kita adalah connecting people to resources. This is very important, and I think everyone and every one of you harus memahami ini. Nah, ini artinya kita punya tugas untuk connecting people tadi, dan ke depan ini yang harus kita lakukan. Maka seperti yang saya sampaikan dalam presentasi tadi, developing alliance, mencari dan juga membuat network, kemudian membangun kerjasama dengan helping profesional yang lain, itu sangat penting untuk dilakukan. Karena itulah yang akan menjadi masa depan kita. Jadi sekali lagi, kita harus membangun network yang banyak, kita bekerja sama dengan siapapun, apakah profesion, masyarakat, ataupun pemerintah.
Tepat hari pemesanan buku ya, kamu baik.
Ini ada yang masuk suaranya. Oke, tetapi pada saat yang sama juga menegaskan bahwa ini profesi saya adalah profesi peksos. Nah, ini kesempatan tetapi juga tantangan ya. Saya akan melihatnya sebaik dengan perspektif yang positif. Jadi untuk itu maka teman-teman, undang-undang peksos yang sudah kita perjuangkan lama sekali ya, Bapak-bapak, Ibu-ibu, Mas-mas dan Mbak-mbak, itu anggap saja sebagai sebuah pintu masuk untuk menegaskan kembali identitas profesi kita, sehingga kita bisa berbuat lebih banyak, lebih dikenal oleh masyarakat, dan tadi menjadi bagian dari whatever helping activities yang ada di negara kita dalam konteks apapun. Itu saja mungkin Mas Ulil, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Ropa. For the next, I will go to Professor Zulkarnain to respond to the questions.
Thank you, moderator. The question of how do universities keep the motivation of students? Number one, we have to pacify their anxiety through assuring them that everything in terms of programs and classes and syllabus will be going on as usual. The only difference is that classes are online rather than face-to-face until come a time where everything is back to quite normal. And then to assure them also that look at these things, whatever we're going through as an advantage for them. Yaitu, the need for social workers is more in demand during hardships. So jobs prospect for them is very marketable, because as long as mankind is around, humankind will be having problems. And now universally, we are all facing problems. And social workers are one of those frontliners to assist them. So if we can give them this assurance that there's job for them once they have graduated, and through graduation, classes are still the same, only the difference is online, and to get them motivated through online is not that easy to motivate them through when you're just hearing voices and virtual reality. But nevertheless, by imposing a condition for them that attendance is still being taken, their attendance to classes are still being taken. So that should be a sort of forced motivation upon them to attend class, and exams will be conducted. Coursework will be conducted. So everything in that sense is normal. The only difference is that for now, we have to emphasize the fact that this is hopefully a temporary situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zulkarnain. So next, I will move to Mas Tufel to respond to the questions.
Okay, thank you. So Look, the first question is actually relating to how social workers develop the approach. So ini pertanyaannya dari Nismah ya, adik saya di Kalimantan. Semoga sehat-sehat. Ini Mbak Nismah ini sudah selesai S3 dari Flinders itu sebenarnya, social worker di Kalimantan. Anyway, so the social workers in Australia, we develop our approach within three key things. The first one, we have to refer to the code of ethics from of the profession. If ASW, Australian Association of Social Workers, kalau tadi Ibu Rofah mengatakan, alhamdulillah kita sudah punya undang-undang yang baru, maka kita menjadi rujukan itu. Kenapa jadi rujukan? Karena setiap kali kita melakukan kegiatan itu legally bind. Jadi bisa jadi kemudian apa yang kita lakukan itu bukan membantu orang, tetapi justru malah memperparah keadaan. Nah, pernah terjadi salah satu contoh kasus misalkan yang terjadi di aged care setting di Panti Jompo. Di Panti Jompo itu kan di Australia dan di banyak negara itu sangat institutionalized approach dan sangat biomedical approach. Jadi misalkan kalau orang tua itu mereka harus mandi sehari 2 kali seperti dipaksa, padahal orang-orang tua itu they have their own voice. Misalkan aku nggak perlu mandi sehari cuma sekali aja, nggak harus dipaksa, dan itu jadi persoalan yang besar di Australia. Itu yang pertama, kita harus merefer ke code of ethics. Kemudian yang kedua, kita juga harus we have to work within the government guideline, which is very important. Government guideline through the pandemic, what's actually the guideline in response to the pandemic. We need to make sure what we're doing is in line within the government policy and also code of conduct. And the other thing, the third thing is we need to continue to develop the professional development for the workers, doing in-house training, doing the webinar like this, and also learning from other workers as well, and requesting feedback from the clients. I think that would be my answer to that question. And I think I know another question related to how we support the marginal people. So social worker in Australia is quite unique. Like I said earlier, social worker is not only on campus. Social worker is everywhere, even in NGO. So this is quite a unique setting. This is why I need to share this with all of you, because I think this is something that cannot be found in Indonesia because of different contexts. It's not about which one is good, which one is bad. We just have a different context. And one thing to highlight here is that in Australia we have the data is quite solid. And that's why all the social support seperti tunjangan cash atau tunjangan apapun, pembayaran apapun dari pemerintah, kita punya satu pusat data yang namanya satu kantor namanya Centrelink. Centrelink itu adalah mereka yang menyimpan semua data kita. Jadi termasuk kalau misalkan tiap orang nanti dapat $750 per 2 minggu misalkan, itu sudah langsung masuk di rekening dan sudah di-assess berdasarkan itu, dan semua orang punya record, punya akun di akun Centrelink itu, dan sehingga itu mempermudah kita atau pemerintah ketika mereka mau mentransfer bantuan langsung ke masyarakat. Saya kira itu highlight yang bisa dipelajari dari yang ada di Australia. Saya kira itu Pak Ulil. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak Mas Dufal. Jadi itu tadi menutup sesi pertama kita. So there are a couple of questions for Mas Dufal that makes us to open the Q&A second session. I would like to read out the question for Mas Dufal. The first one is, what is the ethical dilemma felt by Australian social worker? And the second one is, what do you think Indonesia could learn or adopt from what Australian government have done so far in dealing with this pandemic? Thank you. The time is yours, Mas Dufal.
Okay, thank you. So, langsung saja. The first one, ethical dilemma. We have a lot of ethical dilemmas. Okay, the ethical dilemma salah satunya adalah kalau kita bekerja saya sharing pengalaman aja. Jadi kalau kita bekerja di remote communities. Jadi waktu itu saya 3 tahun bekerja sebagai social worker di daerah namanya di Port Augusta. Port Augusta dengan populasi sekitar 25% adalah komunitas aborigin. Dan penduduknya cuma sedikit. Tadi sekitar mungkin sedikit, mungkin sekitar 2.000 gitu, 3.000. Nah, ethical dilemma adalah ketika kemudian kita sering ketemu dengan klien. atau klien itu connected to one family to another family. Itu ethical dilemma. Misalkan begini, ada kita ketemu misalkan di salah satu tempat belanja atau di supermarket. Kalau di Indonesia misalkan ya di supermarket kita ketemu klien padahal dan kita bawa keluarga. Padahal klien ini baru ketemu kita tadi pagi dan dia ngomongin bahwa dia suicidal gitu. Dia mau atau mungkin dia lagi kena domestic violence misalkan. Jadi atau dia punya aggravated assault. Jadi saya ketemu dengan salah seorang yang anak muda yang baru keluar dari penjara dan kemudian dikasih ke saya kasusnya, dan itu karena kasus tahan rumah. Kemudian saya melihat ternyata dia jalan-jalan di supermarket. Itu salah satu ethical dilemanya, apakah saya harus melaporkan atau tidak? Karena saya ketemunya dari Sabtu. Kalau tidak saya laporkan, ini saya ngelihat. Kalau aku laporkan, ini saya tidak dalam kondisi ketika saya lagi bekerja gitu. Jadi kita harus tahu batas. Tadi ada professional boundaries and personal boundaries tadi yang seperti disampaikan oleh Bu Rofah tadi itu. Jadi itu salah satu contoh tentang ethical dilemma. Kemudian yang kedua, sebagai Muslim, tentu saya tidak mengadvokasi bagaimana kemudian hubungan sesama jenis ya. Itu dia. Ya itu own personal dilemma. Jadi tapi sebagai social worker kita harus juga mampu memberikan yang terbaik buat mereka. Jadi kita harus bisa mampu how to navigate our own values against our clients gitu. Jadi kalaupun dalam kondisi seperti itu biasanya kita kemudian melinkkan klien yang dimaksud kepada rekan yang lain. Setiap kali ethical dilemma kita hadapi, kita harus konsultasi dengan supervisor, lalu kemudian kita dengan supervisor, kemudian kalau bisa kasus kemudian bisa kita pindahkan ke yang lain. Atau misalkan kemudian ketika kita di lapangan ternyata salah satu kliennya adalah orang yang terdekat dengan keluarga kita, itu juga ada conflict of interest. Itu beberapa contoh tentang ethical dilemma dan juga ethical dilemma tidak hanya berkaitan dengan bagaimana sebagai social worker, tapi juga sebagai personal, sebagai seorang Muslim hidup di dunia Barat, nilai-nilainya juga berbeda, dan itu sangat challenging. Tapi buat saya juga opportunities how to show what we are doing, how to show our values as well to others. And another thing is the second question: what Indonesia could learn. I think we can learn from each other, okay? But I think the point I already made earlier is that we have centralized data. Jadi we have centralized data, like I said earlier. We have centralized data and we have a Centrelink as a forerun of like the social support for people. Jadi semua orang punya akun Centrelink, kemudian bisa diakses di situ. Jadi tugas kita sebagai social worker adalah memastikan bahwa yang bersangkutan mendapat bantuan yang seharusnya didapat. Kalau tidak, berarti kita sebagai broker kita harus memfasilitasi itu. Kemudian yang kedua adalah bahwa selain centralized itu juga government ada centralized information. Jadi government take charge. Jadi government itu satu suara. Jadi yang berkuasa siapa, yang kemudian memegang kendali adalah Department of Health. Kenapa? Karena ya berkaitan dengan virus. Semua advice harus datang dari Department of Health. Termasuk itu misalkan dengan kebijakan travel restriction atau kebijakan tentang buka tutup border dan segala macam, itu advice-nya adalah tadi yang di salah satu presentasi dari AHPPC, itu konsorsium orang yang terdiri berbagai macam ahli, dan merekalah yang sebagai corong utama untuk bagaimana kebijakan pemerintah itu di-deliver. Tentu saja itu tidak semudah itu karena dari masing-masing state tentu berbeda kondisinya. Tetapi minimal guideline-nya itu jelas, dari pemerintah guideline jelas, dan itu dari semua bidang itu terkoneksi. Itu yang kedua. Kemudian yang ketiga adalah bahwa ada kerjasama antara pemerintah dan NGO. Kalau di Indonesia saya pikir NGO dimaknai lain, tapi kalau di sini NGO itu dibiayai oleh pemerintah. Jadi kalau di Indonesia mungkin NGO mencari dana dari luar. Kalau di sini NGO itu adalah mereka badan-badan otonom, tapi mereka juga dibiayai oleh pemerintah. Bahkan mereka juga melakukan tender. Misalkan kalau pemerintah akan melakukan, ini ada program untuk membantu akses wanita melahirkan di daerah terpencil misalkan. Nah, saya sebagai salah satu pemilik organisasi, taruhlah misalkan organisasi ABCD Incorporation, saya kemudian bisa menulis proposal, kemudian mengajukan itu dana ke pemerintah untuk mendapatkan dana. Jadi saya sebagai organisasi, saya sebagai pelaksana, tetapi pemerintah tetap mengontrol karena setiap tahun saya harus melakukan annual report. Jadi NGO tetap di bawah koordinasi pemerintah. Jadi saya pikir disitulah seharusnya pemerintah itu hadir, jadi memberikan kepastian, karena tidak hanya soal ekonomi, tidak hanya soal kesehatan, tetapi COVID itu memberikan pengaruh bahwa high uncertainty. Jadi high uncertainty itu maksudnya kapan ini COVID akan berakhir. Kemudian juga heightened stress itu. Kapan saya dapat kerjaan? Kapan saya bisa sekolah lagi? Kemudian apakah saya bisa makan lagi besok? Jadi itu uncertainty itu yang menjadi faktor utama stres. Kemudian ada domestic violence, ada orang bunuh diri, drug abuse semakin tinggi gitu. Saya kira itu, Mas Ulin. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Mas Tupel, sangat mencerahkan sekali. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to stop here. And I think that it will bring us to the end of our session. I would like to really thanks so much to all our wonderful speakers today. It was really a fantastic and informative session. We also had some wonderful questions from the participant or the audience. Thank you everyone for your participation, and particular thanks to Mas Tufel, Ibu Ropa, Professor Zulkarnain, for sharing your knowledge in this international webinar. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I'm going to return the time to MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Gimana? Ya itu
Ya.
nanti MC-nya nggak tahu. Gimana?
The amazing international webinar that has bring us to the ocean of knowledges. Yeah. Thank you very much to all the great speakers. Thank you very much to Mr. Ul Absor who has got us this webinar become exciting webinar. And never forget to thanks to all the audiences.
We do apologize professionally if any words that less pleasing to the audience here. Before we close our webinar today, let's take a picture together. Perhaps for you can turn on your camera. Okay, I'll take this photo together. Make sure in your best condition. So, in one, you can kiss, smile, or others. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Makasih ya semuanya. Saya
Makasih Bu Rektor. Bu Rektor, terima kasih.
Terima kasih untuk Bu Rektor. Terima kasih untuk semuanya. Let us close this international webinar by saying Hamdalillah together. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is the last session, and I think, and the last we say,
wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.